Hey everyone, welcome to the Gotham Graffiti podcast. My name is Scott. This is my cousin Gunnar. We're so excited to be starting this new channel. If you would, please hit subscribe. It'll just help the algorithm and so you don't miss our videos. But this is a channel where we talk about movies, more specifically comic book movies. We talk about comics, as you can clearly see throughout all of our decorations here. But I think we're just going to go ahead and get right into what we're going to talk about today. And our first one is Suicide Squad.
Yeah, so this game comes out in, January 14th today? 13th?
Something like that, yeah.
So it comes out in less than a month. It comes out the 2nd of February. And there's a lot of hate online for this game right now, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to voice my concerns, but I'm also going to voice things I'm excited about. I'll start with the positives. It's Rocksteady, so they did the Arkham trilogy. I have great faith in Rocksteady. I'm sure on some level it's going to be fun. We talked about it earlier. I'm sure it's not going to be some deep character-driven, drama, thematic, experience of a video game. It's probably going to be fun popcorn. You're Deadshot and Harley Quinn trying to kill the Justice League.
Right.
So it looks good. I think... My thing is they kind of varied a little bit away from the Arkham, where Arkham Knight looked like hyper realistic, and even now that game came out in 2015 and you can play it now and it looks like it's running on next gen from 3 months ago.
I know the game's 9 years old. At this
right,
point.
And with this, it's more of a, I don't want to say cartoony, but it's not super...
It's more stylized.
It's more stylized, yeah, that's a nice way to put it. So, but it looks good for what it is. I think it looks very good. I think it looks fun. But my main things are, I enjoy the Suicide Squad. I really do. I just think they're kind of getting rammed down our throats a little bit as comic book fans, whether it's comic books, movies, video games now. It's just, they're not the Justice League.
Right.
They're not the Justice League. They're, they're not even like the Legion of Doom. They're an off-brand. They're cool for what they are. And the reason the Suicide Squad is cool is because they're not the main group.
Right.
And in the last few years, I feel like there's been a huge push to make them a main group because of the popularity of Harley Quinn, which very understandable from a commercial standpoint. But I'm just kind of growing a little bored with the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Also, I don't love the cast of characters. I'm just going to say it. I don't love it. I get you have to have Harley in it. That's not really debatable. But King Shark, Boomerang, Deadshot, am I missing one or is it just the four of them?
Well, it's Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, King Shark, Harley Quinn. I think that's it. Is there not one more?
I think it's just the four of them. If we're wrong, if we're missing one, then correct us in the comments. But I'm pretty sure it's just the one, or the four. And there's a lot of different iterations of the Suicide Squad. And like I said, I know you have to have Harley, but I really feel like there should have been a real heavy hitter there.
Yeah.
And I guess you can say King Shark technically, but there should have been a Black Manta, a Black Adam, a Bane, a Deathstroke, someone that has historically been in the squad that really poses a threat to the Justice League. Because here's my thing, and this is the way I'll put it, and then we can hand it over to you for your thoughts, is... If you were to take any of these four members, Deadshot, Harley, King Shark, Boomerang, and put them against any one of the League members, pick any of them, Lantern, Wonder Woman, Batman, whoever. If it was a one-on-one fight in an animated movie or a comic or something, we'd all be like, oh, well, this is going to be over rather quickly. And so they're asking us to buy into the fact that the team of Boomerang, King Shark, Harley Quinn, and Deadshot are going to take out the 7 mightiest heroes on the earth.
Yeah.
I just don't love that idea. Let me rephrase. It's not that I don't love the idea. I just don't love that there's not a Black Manta, Bane, Black Adam, like we mentioned. Someone that's a real, true threat where you're like, oh, well, maybe. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of what you kind of said is what I had written in my notes here, like the fact that we don't have a more heavy hitter like a Deathstroke, a Bane, a Black Manta, even a Black Adam situation, something like that, where it's like they could actually pose a real threat to the Justice League, which is a little unfortunate because that would have been a lot of fun to play as either any one of those characters that I just listed off.
Not to interrupt you, just to your point really quickly, there should have been a threat to Superman.
Yes.
In any comic, movie, whatever it is, when it's a threat to the Justice League, it's always like, okay, who's the one that's going to be the one to threat Superman. And a lot of times it is. It's Black Adam. Or it's someone like that. And it's just the fact that there's not that character.
Right, yeah, and I think that's really unfortunate. But one of the things that you didn't touch on that I wanted to talk about was, what I guess you kind of touched on a little bit, was the fact that they're trying to make us believe that these characters are actually going to kill the Justice League. And not only that, but it's the very first time besides like an Injustice game where we're seeing the Justice League in a video game. And I mean, I know that they had like a Mortal Kombat versus like the DC universe at one point, but like
that was way back.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, like an actual free roam game with the Justice League in it. The very first time we're going to see them,
a character-driven game.
Yeah, and the very first time we're going to see it is these, probably B-tier villains are going to try and kill them.
Some of them are C-tier.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, that's really unfortunate. And I know that, and we've talked about this before, but like this might actually, introduce them into, a video game universe, and then we get to actually see the Justice League or get to play as the Justice League in a later game that's going to be tied into the same universe. Which I don't hate that.
If that's the case, then okay.
Yeah,
do what you gotta
but like
do.
I still feel like if the way that you're going to introduce the Justice League, it should have been like if you want to introduce the Justice League, a perfect way to do it would be you have this game, you keep the same characters, and then maybe like one member of the Justice League finds out what they're doing. It could be Batman, it could be Wonder Woman, whoever.
It's not an end of the world mission. It's something else.
It's like they make a cameo and then they reference the League, and then later on in another game we actually get the Justice League. And then if you want to do a Suicide Squad versus Justice League game later on down the line with heavy hitters on the Suicide Squad, I wouldn't hate that.
Also, not only are they wanting us to believe that the Suicide Squad is going to beat the Justice League, they're also making us want to believe that the Suicide Squad's going to defeat Brainiac.
Yeah.
Brainiac's really the big bad here.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we could totally eat our words and this game be not what we're expecting, and the Justice League come back and you get to play as the Justice League, kind of like a Venom and Spider-Man 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then great, and we will both come on here the next episode and tell you we were wrong.
I hope so.
I hope we are too.
Yeah.
But if it's not that, it's just, I feel like it's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
But I'm going to buy the game. I'm going to enjoy it. I'll have fun with it, It's Kevin Conroy's last, appearance, project as Batman. So for that reason alone, I'm going to buy it and play it. But I just feel like there was a lot left on the table with this.
Yeah, I agree. The Insomniac leaks, that's something that we really want to talk about as well. I know it's really big news. We'll kind of briefly just touch on it.
There's not a whole lot.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot. I mean, we did see that... a lot of, what was it, 3-4 projects that got leaked. We saw the Wolverine,
the Venom game, Spider-Man 3 Part 1 and 2, and then the X-Men game.
Yeah, so like a lot of stuff got leaked, which, I mean, first of all, they look awesome. I mean,
I'm down for all those games.
Yeah,
I'm
but
down
like,
for all those.
I know that, it's really unfortunate for the creators, the fact that like their stuff got leaked all the way to the end of the decade. Mm-hmm. And, that's really unfair to them because, like, can you imagine the excitement, like, if an X-Men teaser trailer or a Wolverine
and now when it drops, it's like,
from a year ago.
We already know.
So, but yeah,
I don't have a whole lot. I don't want to spend too much time on it just because, honestly, the situation does make me upset. I feel terrible for the creators. But it looks sweet. I mean, that being said, Wolverine looks sweet. It looks super good. I love the suit. I guess we're going to call it the Insomniac Wolverine suit.
Yeah.
It looks straight out of the comics. I love the mechanics. I love the fact that he's got like kind of like a detective vision from Arkham games, but it's like his senses activating as like the Wolverine. I think there's just a lot there that looks really good. Mm-hmm. And given what the 2 Spider-Man games are, as big of a Wolverine fan as I am, I'm pumped. I tried to avoid as many leaks as I could just because I want the creators to do this in the way they wanted to do this. So I'm very much looking forward to it, whether we get it next year or in 2. Mm-hmm. And then I think all the games look great. We don't really know anything about them yet, but Venom, Spider-Man Parts 1 and 2, and X-Men all look great. So I think Insomniac and the powers that be are putting us as the players in really good hands, and I think we're going to have some really, really, really good games to play and experience over the next 8 years going into 2031. So, yeah.
I agree.
All right, y'all. So next we're going to go into... originally we were planning for a segment talking about Aquaman 2 and our thoughts on Aquaman 2. but we decided to make it a little bit more grand with this being the end of the DCEU and Blue Beetle coming out last year and it technically being part of the James Gunn universe.
Yeah.
That marked the beginning of it. So we're going to just spend a good chunk of time here, most of the podcast, talk about our thoughts about the DCEU, and then at the end of that, we're going to give you our favorite, not what we think are the best, our favorite 3 projects from the DCEU. So
Yes.
why don't you give us your thoughts?
So the DCEU, obviously, the competition to the MCU when it came out. My biggest thing about the DCEU, as much as I love a good majority of the projects that came out, I think a lot of it was rushed, and I don't think that was necessarily fault of the writers. I think that was just because like when we hit
The studio.
Yeah, it was a studio. Because when we hit the first movie, which was Man of Steel in 2013, right? By that point, we already had all of the origin stories for all of the other Marvel characters. We had an Avengers movie, and then I think we had like one movie after that. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, because I think Ultron came out in like 2014.
It was 2015.
2015.
Yeah. Because by the time, because even going a little further than that, because we had Man of Steel, and then we had BVS, which that was until 2016, so that was another 3 years later. So then you have...
Which the issue with the BVS was both times it was going up against 2 different Avengers movies.
Well, right.
I guess technically Cap. But
right, but I'm saying because like by the time you hit your second movie in your universe, the other universe has 2 Avengers movies, and they're going on their like Avengers 1.5, like 2.5, like the Civil War.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the same premise as BVS, so we're already it's like a competition of ideas at that point.
I mean, dude, that year it was like, which Civil War are you gonna watch? Like that was the whole thing.
That was a fun time, but
that was a good year.
I mean, my biggest thing, as much as I think that there were things that they could have changed, I think that the DCEU gets a lot more hate than it deserves. Because yes, there's some bad movies here and there. Like I'm not gonna, like the Birds of Prey movie, like
not great.
The first Suicide Squad movie. They're not great movies, right?
Right.
But I think like if you go back and look, because we've said this before, I think DC movies age way better than Marvel movies, especially Marvel movies within the MCU.
Yes.
I mean, because you have your Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. You got your Blade movies, which
the cult classics are different.
Yeah, like the X-Men movies, a good majority of them, they aged pretty well. But like a good majority of the MCU movies, besides like Captain America and like some of the Avengers movies.
I mean, dude, even the first Avengers movie, like if you go back and this isn't me being an MCU hater, like if you go back and watch the first Avengers, there are some things where you're like,
Right.
and that only came out a little over 10 years ago.
Right.
And the aspects of it that don't hold up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also one of those things where it's like, I think Marvel gets a lot of like, I guess cut them some slack because it was the first time that we'd ever seen a.
They were the pioneer of it.
Yeah, they were like absolutely. I love the first Avengers movie. I think it's one of those movies.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it was a fun time, but like I said, like you can't really talk about the DCEU without talking about the MCU just because of how much competition that they had.
Because how much they were trying to play catch up.
Yes,
the entire time they were trying to play catch
and
up.
I think that at the end, I mean, like I said, I think it gets more hate than it deserves. But I also think it messed them up in the end because they had to course correct so many times to the point where they didn't really know.
They weren't consistent.
They didn't know where they were going. And so, like, because, Aquaman 2 is the end of the universe. It should have been, like, a finale of the Justice League or something like that.
Right.
And it's just, like, a random Aquaman sequel.
Right.
Which,
right.
Aquaman 2 wasn't bad. Like, it was a decent movie.
Yeah.
But, like, that shouldn't have been...
It wasn't great either, but...
Yeah. It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
It wasn't... I think the first one's way better. But,
easily.
Like, the end of the DCU should have gone out with, like, them defeating Darkseid or, something like that instead of just, Aquaman 2.
No, I agree.
Which is really a shame because I think that the DCEU, if they had gotten their stuff together earlier on, I think it could have been way better than the MCU because it would have been a different flavor.
I think the potential from a commercial standpoint of DC characters versus Marvel characters isn't even close.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not saying that as a dig on Marvel. If Marvel had the original big 3 at the time, like if they could have started the universe with Spider-Man and Wolverine and then maybe not. That's just let's be real here. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are way more cool and popular than the Captain America and Iron Man. They just are. I like Captain America and Iron Man. They're not as cool or popular. I don't mean to go on a rant. I hate that argument. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. They're not as cool. They're not as cool. They're not as popular. They're not as commercially successful. No one cared who Iron Man was until the first movie came out.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. Except for like comic book fans, no one cared. You didn't see kids walking around with Iron Man action figures. You saw kids walking around with Spider-Man and Batman action figures, though.
Yep.
Okay, my bad. Got a little sidetracked there. I'll go into my thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead.
I unapologetically love the DCEU. Like, unapologetically love it. For its faults and all. I think you're right in that they just were trying to play way too much catch-up. They were trying to play way too much catch-up, and I think an issue with the DCEU was, as much as I love Zack Snyder, he was trying to make a stylized DCEU. So his Superman, Batman, his everyone was not true form of the character. It was a altercation. And the benefit I give to the MCU was like, I mean, to the pages on the paper, like, were doing their characters.
Right.
Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers didn't do that. I mean, as much as I enjoy Ben Affleck's Batman, like, obviously the comparison he always gets is The Dark Knight Returns, right? Okay, well, that's an Elseworld story, it's a Frank Miller story, and it's not the popular opinion and perception of what the Batman character is. So off the bat in BVS, a lot of people are immediately turned off because they're like, what's Batman doing branding guys?
Yeah.
Like, he's branding them like cattle, which I thought was dope, but like, a lot of people did it, and I understand why they didn't. I get it. Especially if you are a parent and you're like, oh, hey, you want to go see the new Batman Superman movie? And in the first 20 minutes, he's like, branding people and borderline killing people, and
people are getting shanked in prison because of it.
Yeah, like he's indirectly putting hits on people. Like, so I get why it wasn't popular, or not. It definitely was popular, but why it wasn't received well. I think you're right. I mean, definitely it has its flops. Shazam 2, Birds of Prey. I mean, I think Aquaman 2 actually isn't doing terrible at the box office right now. I think it's making some money.
Not a whole lot of people are talking
Black
about
Adam wasn't great.
Yeah.
I also think on the same note of talking about how stylized Zack Snyder was trying to make it, and we saw a fair amount of the idea in the Snyder Cut, was Warner Brothers got way too in the way. Warner Brothers got way too in the way.
Yes.
And did not let him do his vision because, where you're talking about things aging like wine, because everybody flipped on Snyder. At first, everybody hated him, and then Warner Brothers stepped in, and you got Joss Whedon in, and all these, who's the lady that did Patty Jenkins and everything else, and then everyone was like, oh wait, what was Zack Snyder's plan? Get him back in.
Yeah.
But by then it was too late. He had the unfortunate passing of his daughter, and he just kind of took a step back, and it was just kind of, you cooked your goose, Warner Brothers. Like, he was out, he was done. You had meddled in it too much. And what's unfortunate, where you're talking about things aging, had we really seen, I think, the full slate of what Snyder was going to do, maybe it wasn't received right at the time, dude, they would have been cult classics.
Oh, absolutely.
They would have been Lord of the Rings, they would have been Star Wars, like those Justice League movies on what he had planned were like basically the DCAU, but just a little bit darker, more adult, and put on.
Right, yeah.
And it's a bummer. That's why whenever I tell people if they want to get to know the DC universe, go watch the DCAU. Yeah. Like, not the 90, like, I'm talking like the new 52 stuff. Like, go watch Justice League War, like, go watch that slate. But so those are my overall thoughts. I think it had a ton of potential. A lot of really good memories, I will say. A lot of some of the best, as a comic book fan, some of the best memories. I remember what it smelt like the day going to see BVS. Like, that's how pumped we were. Like, it was just a really good time, a good time in life. But so now we're going to go into our 3 favorite, once again prefacing, not best, our 3 favorite projects from the DCEU with an honorable mention. So we're going to start at number 3. So what's number 3 for you?
So number 3 for me is Batman vs. Superman.
Number 3?
Yes, I have 2 more above it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a
little skeptical right now.
No. I really like BVS. Don't get me wrong. I have some problems with it, but it's one of those things when I watch it, I can get over it. Especially.
What are your problems with BVS?
I didn't like that they killed Superman that quickly. I think that should have been later. I don't think that should have been
Okay.
because with BVS.
So you don't hate the idea, you hate the execution.
I hate the fact that they did it as early as they did. That's what I don't like. I guess
not the idea of it.
Don't get me wrong. When I watch the movie now, because it is what it is. Like I can still enjoy it. Like don't get me wrong. But when initially when I watched it, I was like, because that's his second movie.
Yeah,
and it's the first time we're seeing the Trinity together. We get the Trinity, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman for about
18 2 minutes. Yeah, whatever it is, the last 20 minutes.
And then he dies, and I'm like, oh man. And then we go into Justice League without Superman, and like half of the movie we're having to, even with the Snyder Cut, we're having to, revive Superman.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Again, that's a different take. I don't necessarily dislike the fact that they did that. I think that it should have been, you have the Trinity, and then you have the Justice League movie, and then after the Justice League movie, if you want to kill Superman, you can kill Superman. I think that they should have done what the DCEU did, where the Justice League is already formed, and they're trying to stop Doomsday, and then Superman comes in, cleans up business, and then he dies.
Also because then for the heroes themselves, it hits way...
Yes, exactly.
Like, and then when you get that scene with Batman standing at his... grave, and he's saying, I always respected you. You were my friend, even though I never told you.
Exactly, but I think we were somewhat robbed of that because of the fact that it's BVS. They were fighting 5 minutes before they.
Okay, all right, you sold me on it. Sold me on it.
So,
all right.
I mean, that really and truly, that's my only gripe with the movie. It's still my third favorite in the DCU.
Yeah.
So like, I still. I love seeing, obviously Ben Affleck Batman, there's some controversy around him, but it's still hit the warehouse fight.
Dude, to me, the warehouse, and this isn't me being a Batman fanboy. It's really not. To me, the warehouse fight is the best fight choreography in a superhero movie ever. Maybe you could throw the Winter Soldier fight with Cap in there, right there, maybe. But for me, I'm not mad if you pick Cap and Winter Soldier over that, but for me, and I'm sure for you, that's the pinnacle.
Well, here, let's get into your number 3.
So number 3 for me, once again, we're talking about favorites here, and this is going to take some explanation because people are not going to be a fan of this.
Okay.
The first Suicide Squad.
Okay.
So this is why. I watched it last night with my girlfriend. Obviously, every girl and their mother loves the 2016 Suicide Squad.
Well, I don't know why. That's like a...
Dude, I don't know. It's apparently, I didn't know this until she told me. A lot of girls like Jared Leto.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Like as Joker or just like as an actor?
They think he's attractive.
Oh.
And so when he's doing the crazy, it's they think it's hot. I didn't know that. So apparently a lot of girls are attracted to Jared Leto. But I ended up looking him up. He's a pretty good-looking dude, so I was like, oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But, so... To me, the Suicide Squad is the perfect example of a fun superhero movie without it having to be campy MCU.
Right.
It's not jokes every other line. It does take itself seriously, but it also loosens up when it needs to. It's just fun. To me, that is the perfect... It's a fun superhero movie. You can watch it. You don't have to take it super serious except for the parts where they want you to. You can laugh, when you want to laugh, Also, the soundtrack is amazing. The soundtrack to the soundtrack's great. I think visually also, it looks really good. I think the suits, now granted, of course, because they cast Will Smith, they couldn't let him have his mask on the whole time. But even with his mask, dude, that Deadshot look is sweet. I love Killer Croc, all prosthetics. I love
didn't they won an Oscar or something?
Yeah, for art and makeup.
Yeah.
Art and makeup.
Yeah.
Killer Croc looks great. Katana, everyone just looked I think his name's Jai Courtney. Jai Courtney is Captain Boomerang. Everyone just looked oh yeah, I'm reading a Suicide Squad book.
Right.
So for me, also it was the time it came out. It was the same year that BVS came out. Just that 2016 year for superhero fans was just such a special year. So Suicide Squad for me, I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's great. I don't think any of those things. I just think it's very, very fun. And I think it also has a lot of tribute to hardcore comic book fans in terms of the stills and stuff that you get. Dude, the chase with Batfleck and the Batmobile and Joker and his purple Lamborghini. It's a fun comic book movie. And so for me, that's why I've got it at 3. Okay, so now that we're on number 2, what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is the Snyder Cut.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it's leaps and bounds ahead of the Justice
Don't have
League
to
movie.
say much about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I know people complain that like it's 4.5 hours long or whatever it is, and I do agree. There were things that could have been cut that could have made it flow a little bit better. It does drag around like 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah, dude, that 2.5 mark's hard to get.
Yeah. That's like. I've only watched it once, but when I did watch it, like I had to take like an intermission.
Like, all right, I guess I'll stop.
Yeah, I need some snacks and a restroom break before we keep going. Yeah. But I mean, like, it showed us what we were supposed to get, and the fact that like, because you got the campy Joss Whedon Justice League movie, and then like we actually get to see what Snyder was
Justice
going to do.
League was supposed to be.
And like I'm like, dude, if you had cut like 45 to an hour out of like the Snyder cut and release that, like I think all of his haters would have been like, oh. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's almost bittersweet. It's almost bittersweet.
Yeah.
It's almost bittersweet because of how good it actually is, and you're like, oh no,
this is what we were supposed to.
We were gonna get a sequel to this, like, oh no, like so. Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, I love the Snyder Cut just because. I mean, dude, we get to see Darkseid. Like, we get to see Darkseid.
Darkseid almost stole the show in certain aspects.
I mean,
of the movie.
Obliterates the Justice League. Like, there's so much about it. We get to see freaking Martian Manhunter in live action. Like, we see the debut of Martian Manhunter.
The way that Flash saved everybody was so much better than the way that it was
done. My gosh, dude, that's so good. That's so good.
Like that scene, I was like, oh, Ezra Miller can actually like.
Yes. Okay. Same thing for me. Yeah. I was never a big fan of Ezra Miller as the Flash, and then I watched that, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's the Flash. I buy it. He still should have been Wally West. I don't know why they cast him as Barry Allen. He should have been Wally West, but nonetheless. 100%. 100%.
So what about your number two?
My number two is going to be Man of Steel.
Okay.
Number two for me is Man of Steel. Now, obviously, dude, everybody watching this is probably like this guy. Like, I look like the DCEU fanboy. They're my favorite, not what I think is the best. It's my personal favorite. Man of Steel for me was just in the same way, and the same reason people don't like it because of what it did to Superman is why I like it. Because, so for a little bit of context, obviously, we're cousins, we've grown up together.
Right.
I have been since a baby boy a Batman fanboy, and for a long time he was a Superman fanboy. And I never got it. I thought Superman was boring, he didn't wear a mask, he was just like generic superhero, and I was like, he had cool villains. Like, Darkseid's always been one of my favorite villains. I was like, yeah, he's got cool villains, but not much past that. And we went to go see Man of Steel for your birthday.
Yes. It was my 12th, 13th birthday.
12th, 13th birthday, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, that movie made me go, oh, he can be more than just Superman. He can be more than that. Now, that being said, between Man of Steel, Injustice, and Homelander, even though he's not Superman, I think we've kind of grown out of the serious Superman arc, and we're ready for this again. I think everybody's ready for that again. Yeah. But at the time, it made me a fan of Superman. I think Amy Adams does great as Lois Lane. Obviously, Henry Cavill does great as Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Shannon does great as... I mean, the way it was cast perfectly.
Yeah.
I also think it does a really good job. Superman raging is probably one of the coolest things to see in comic books. And you get to see when Zod's at the farm. And Superman's just like, I don't care what's happening. Like, you do not go near my mother. He
throws him into silos.
Drives him miles. And then he starts throwing hands outnumbered. Like, it's just also the action in it's great.
Yeah.
Say what you will about the final act. Say what you will about the whole Metropolis collapsing. I don't hate it, not because of what it is, but because of what it set up.
Right.
So it was the building plant of the DCEU, that event. And I think the dialogue in that fight between Zod and Superman is muy caliente, very good. Yeah, man, I really like it. I really like Man of Steel. Like, Man of Steel's probably, next to the Superman the Animated Series, probably my favorite Superman arc. I love Henry Cavill's Superman.
Yeah.
So I think now we're at one for you, huh?
Well, no, we're gonna do our honorable mention, remember?
Oh, that's right. We have an honorable mention, everyone.
So we'll do an honorable mention, and then we'll go into our
We'll go into number one. Yeah. So what's your honorable mention?
So my honorable mention is the first Aquaman movie.
Okay.
So when it originally came out, I thought it was all right. Like I enjoyed it, and then I went through this phase for whatever reason for like 2 years where I was like, it's Aquaman,
Yeah. What everybody else did.
Yeah. And then I remember because Aquaman 2, it came out however long it's been now, and we watched it together with your girlfriend.
Yeah. Guess what, guys? She loved it.
Yeah.
Duh.
But anyway, we watched the movie, and like I hadn't seen it in probably at least a year, and like I watched it, I was like, oh, this is actually really good.
It's really good, actually.
This is actually a really good movie, and Jason Momoa actually does a really good job.
He actually tries to be Aquaman.
Yeah, exactly, and like I mean the whole like the brother thing between him and Orm, and like his his relationship with his father, and like just the way that. First of all, like I think,
in Italy.
Oh yeah, like I think that out of the DCEU, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, I think that it might have been one of the most visually creative movies I've
Aquaman?
seen. Yeah.
Oh, hands down. The visuals and I mean, dude, just the Atlantean
like
aesthetic.
Yeah,
alone,
well, like the battle scenes,
the weapons.
Yeah, like it's just
100%. Well, it's James Wan.
Yeah, like it almost feels like I'm watching a Star Wars movie underwater. Like that's almost what it feels like. Yeah. 100%. And it's done very well. Like, and again, like I said, I'd almost forgotten how good the movie was until I rewatched it. I was like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
what about you?
All right. Well, for me, I feel bad now that I didn't put this in my top 3 because I wasn't considering it technically in slate. Honorable mention for me is the Snyder Cut. Okay. Just because I was like, not obviously, I probably should have asked that, but when we were making these lists, I was like, well, it's technically not in it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll honorable mention it. But yeah, we already talked about it. I mean, I don't really have much to say. I mean, I love the movie. I love it. One thing we didn't say. The cyborg stuff in it, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Because, so here's my thing. If you remember, I think it was 2015 Comic-Con or 2014 Comic-Con, when they released that slate, and the Cyborg movie was on there, and everybody was like, a Cyborg movie? And then you watch the Snyder Cut, and you're like, oh, I want a Cyborg movie.
Yeah.
Like, Ray Fisher did a phenomenal job. Like, I was one of those people that was pissed that they replaced for the new 52 Martian Manhunter for Cyborg. I was like, dude, he's a Teen Titan. Why is he in the Justice League?
Yeah.
But that sold me, man. Like, it sold me. I fell in love with Cyborg as a character.
Yeah.
Because, the Cyborg character we had known before was Teen Titan Cyborg. And seeing this more adult, grounded, really tormented, like, what has happened to me as a man. Like, I'm a robot now. Like, it was just done masterfully. So I think we kind of touched on everything else. I think it's Zack Snyder's swan song. And Snyder Cut for me is my honorable mention. So now we're going into number 1. So I know what your number 1 is.
Yeah,
I
mean, you already know. It's Man of Steel. Man of Steel is my number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of touched on it. Like, I was a Superman fan for the longest time. I kind of switched over. You know when I became a Superman fan again was? Like, really became a Superman fan again?
Man of Steel?
No, well, it was Man of Steel, but then it was when BBS came out, I remember going to the movie, I was like, oh, Batman, I want Batman to beat up Superman. And then while he was doing it, I was like, oh, maybe I don't.
You're like it's like you're watching a wrestling match, you're like, oh wait, I'm rooting for the baby face.
I was like, I don't want Batman, I want Superman to win. He's right. Like,
and I'm sitting there like, yeah, beat his ass.
Well, no, and I'm kind of like, oh, I feel horrible. I should have rooted for Superman. But I mean, like, the Man of Steel, like the soundtrack alone, like I'm a really big soundtrack guy.
Yeah, dude, the soundtrack.
The soundtrack.
Great.
I mean, like not
great.
to get like personal or anything, but like that got me through some stuff in high school.
Yeah.
And like the fact that one of the things that I really like about Man of Steel.
Really quick, what's the one? It's my favorite song off the soundtrack. It's the one you told me to hit in the gym. What's it called? Arcade, dude. That thing hits.
It's when he's fighting Zod.
Yes, that is so good.
Yeah. But like the fact that I grew up with the Superman like this. The Christopher Reeve Superman.
Truth, Justice, American Way.
And like that's cool when you're a kid, but when you start to get a little older, it's kind of like, well, I want a little bit more.
Some layers, maybe.
Yeah, and then when Man of Steel came out, and we saw it for my birthday. I was like, oh, they made Superman like he felt like a human, but torn between two worlds.
Right.
And,
what he's supposed to be.
Yeah, like actually trying to navigate, and like they made him relatable, and like people when it came out were like, oh, I want my Superman to be like one-dimensional, and I want him to smile at the camera and all of that. I'm like, I kind of don't want that. I mean, there's times and places for that. Don't get me wrong, But like, I kind of like it that they made Superman as human as they did, and like the fact that he has to try and figure it out as he's going, and he's not this yet, but he becomes that at the end of the movie.
Well, I think the biggest issue with that take is, and call this a hot take, if you want Superman to be one-dimensional and just a good guy, you suck at character adaptation or whatever you want to call it. Like, if you want Superman to be one-dimensional and just all the time, then you don't like superheroes. Because the appeal of Superman is, it's kind of like Aquaman. He's Atlantean and human. He's torn. He's Kryptonian and human. He's technically DNA Kryptonian, but he only knows Earth. He only knows Kansas. He's an American small-town kid. But he's not. That's the whole dynamic and appeal of Superman. So we'll probably clip this, I'm assuming now. But yeah, if you like that kind of Superman, then you don't like Superman. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't love Iron Man as a character. I think he's cool. I don't love him. I prefer my Iron Man kind of just like be the tech guy. Yeah. Like, don't try and fight Captain America. Like, he's gonna take you down, all right? Yeah. Just be Iron Man. So if you are like that, just say that. But you don't like Superman if that's what you want. Continue.
Well, that was
it.
Yeah,
that was it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of took over.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I got that brought up. Like, I remember a specific YouTube video I listened to in like 2016 when like the height to BVS, and they were just crapping on Man of Steel for that reason. And I was like, what do you want? Like him to like break the fourth wall and smile at the camera and be like, I'm gonna go beat up Zod now. Like, no, dude, that's not Superman. That sucks.
Yeah.
That would be like saying like, I want Batman to only be brooding all the time. It's like, no, you want those moments with Alfred and Selina. It's like, no, it's just
and Robin.
You don't understand the character, and that's okay. So I guess we'll go into my number one.
Yeah.
My number one is Batman vs. Superman. Batman vs. Superman is in my top 3 comic book movies of all time. Deal with it, okay? I love BVS. BVS for me, same thing for Man of Steel for you. BVS got me through a lot in high school. That movie meant a lot to me. I love Batfleck. As much as I love Robert Pattinson's Batman, man, do I want that Arkham Asylum movie. Yeah. I want that with everything in me, man. I think... I also, side note, I was always a big Ben Affleck guy. Like, I love The Town. I love Good Will Hunt. Like, I love Ben Affleck. So when he was Batman, when everyone else was freaking out, I was like, no, have y'all seen The Town? Like, he's gonna kill it. He's gonna be a good Batman. And then he got beefy as, all get out. I love his Batmobile, still to this day. Well, okay, before the Batman came out, that was my favorite Batmobile. I'm a gearhead, so when the Batman came out, I was like, oh, dude, it's like I think it's either a 68 or a 78. I can't remember what's on my head. Challenger model build. So it's just, but there's so much I love about that movie. The warehouse scene. I mean, I think that movie has so much. It's iconic.
Yeah.
You get the Doomsday fight. You get Superman's death. You get the warehouse fight. You get the Batman and Superman fight. I mean, dude, the still of Superman just with his fist, or no, I don't even think it's his fist. I think he just stands there, and Batman sideswipes him.
Oh yeah.
And then Batman just rises up out of the Batmobile, and Superman's just standing over him, and you see these two comic book icons,
two titans,
face to face, and the like, next time there's shining your light in the sky, don't go to it. The bat is dead, and then you get the do you bleed? You will. Like, it's like, oh, that's so good, dude. That's so good. And also, I think Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is really good. Hot take. I love Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor in it because I don't think a lot of people knew this. He's not Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor's son.
Yes.
He's not bald genius, super, Sodom, solid guy. Like, that's not what he is. He's supposed to be his son. He's supposed to be quirky. And for what it is, I think he did really well. Because they really portray how much he hates Superman. He's got a God complex. It makes sense. And then also in the same turn, they make you hate him with like when he kidnaps his mom and like how like vile and twisted and and everything else, to the point to where he pretty much orchestrates the fight between Batman and Superman.
Oh yeah,
I mean, like it's I think there's so much that's so good about that movie. To me, it feels very Shakespearean. Batman vs. Superman feels very Shakespearean to me. So, that is my favorite project. I also think the best project to come out of the DCEU is Batman vs. Superman. But, all right, now that we're done with that, we're going to close out the podcast really quick, not too long. because there's not really a whole lot going on this year.
Yeah.
What are your 3 most looked forward to releases of 2023? We'll start with you at your third.
Okay. My third is actually Joker 2.
Joker 2. Okay.
Like you said, there's not. Like when I was making this list, I mean, even just a couple of minutes before we started shooting, I was like, "What is?"
There's not a whole lot.
What's coming out in this year? Like I don't really know.
It's a low year.
Yeah, and like
because 2025 is going to be like box office smash after box office smash.
Yeah, we're getting Batman 2 and like a bunch of other stuff like that.
Superman,
yeah. Anyway,
I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man comes out in 25 too. I think his next installment does.
Oh, is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But anyway, Joker 2. I mean, we've kind of briefly talked about it. I'm sure we will here in a minute too as well. But you know, I really did like the first Joker movie. I thought it was a very good movie, and I think that if Joaquin Phoenix is going to sign on for a second movie, and like you said this before, like there has to be something there. Like it's not just
from an artist perspective.
Yeah, like there's got to be something there, and like I have seen some stuff with Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. I'm like, okay, you know, it might be decent. Like it's worth a watch at least.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I got you. I mean, for me, it's just more than anything like. It's like the first one was phenomenal, so it's like the second one's got to be good, right?
There has to be at least a story there.
There's got to be something. There's got to be some meat on that bone.
Yeah.
So okay. So going into my third is it's the sequel to the prequel of Planet of the Apes.
Oh.
So the Planet of the Apes trilogy is probably one of my favorite trilogies in film. War of the Planet, or War for the, or of the, whichever one it is, of the Planet of the Apes is one of my favorite movies of all time. So this third one's coming out. It's Caesar's son. So Caesar's passed, you know, he dies in the last movie, and it's his son taking hold, and it looks on some level there's going to be another ape war, which, like, who doesn't want to see monkeys with spears fighting? That's sick.
Don't they have AKs too?
They did in the second one, but this is like them going kind of back to prehistoric roots, so I don't know if they will or not.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm really excited for it, and yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's just it looks cool. It looks cool. I love the first 3, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm pumped for Caesar's son to see what he does.
Yeah.
So okay. So what's your second one?
So my second one is Deadpool 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, we've seen all the leaks with the Wolverine stuff, and like it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate Deadpool into the MCU now. Like I'm really interested in see how they're going to do that.
Okay.
And I do think it'll be a fun movie. I like the first one. I enjoyed the second one. You know, so
it's Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. You know.
Yeah. I mean,
you gotta love it.
At the end of the day, I know he's going to be at least be funny. So like,
you're at least going to get some laughs.
Like even if the movie's terrible, I know I'm going to laugh at Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah,
so,
100%.
Yeah. But
100%.
What about you?
Number 2 for me is going to be Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1.
Okay.
We're going to, probably next episode or the third episode from now, we'll have watched it and have a review, because we're physical media guys.
Yeah.
And it comes out on Blu-ray and 4K the 29th. So
yeah, I think it's already out on digital.
It is, but like I'm not paying $20 to watch it on digital. Yeah. I'm waiting, because I also want it for my collection. So so we'll watch that and put a review out. But I don't have a whole lot to say, because I can't, for those of you that don't know the story, I can't say a whole lot without getting into plots.
Right.
But on some level, we're assuming this is resetting the DC animated universe, which is very exciting. With the exception of both the Batman Long Halloweens, I was not a huge fan of this universe, of this revamped universe. Not that I didn't like the movies, I didn't love the art style.
Yeah.
We've talked about this to where it's not that I hate the art style for a Elseworld story if DC were to do it. I just didn't like it for this is the main.
Yeah, I think it worked really well for the Long Halloween movies, just because it has it
was stylized.
Yeah, but I think for some of the other movies, I think it was just kind of like maybe we can switch it up just a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So so that's 2. So now you're number 1.
Mine was actually the Crisis on Infinite. That
was nice. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, we just discussed it.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to it, because, like you said, it is going to be a reboot. So I mean, it's new beginnings.
On some level.
Yeah, we get to see.
Maybe we'll get some cool cameos. Maybe.
Yeah, like who knows? We'll see.
Maybe we'll see some cool cameos.
Yeah.
Once again, we'll have that review up in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, so number 1 for me, we flipped our 2 and 1. Number 1 for me is Deadpool 3.
Oh, really?
I am a huge Wolverine guy. I like Deadpool, but I'm not a huge Deadpool guy. It's because of Wolverine.
Yeah. He's got the yellow suit now.
Yeah, we're seeing a comic accurate Hugh Jackman Wolverine. Yeah. There's not much else I need to say there.
Yeah.
Like, that's just it. That sells it in and of itself. It looks like we'll be getting Cyclops in it as well. It looks like some of the previous X-Men characters will be coming back, but in their comic suits.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really cool, whether that's as a joke or not. It'll just be cool to see them. And the fact that this has taken so much work, I really trust Ryan Reynolds because we know how passionate he is about this character. So I know that. Also, Hugh Jackman after Logan was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So for Hugh Jackman to put his legacy of Wolverine on the line, there has to be something really good here. So I think we're going to get just really good popcorn fun, and I think it's going to be probably one of the better buddy cop movies in a long time.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
One of the better buddy cop movies in a long time. Also, if we can get just one more Hugh Jackman, like Berserker Wolverine scene, I'm all
in
for
his
it.
yellow suit.
But in his yellow suit. So we haven't seen the cowl on him yet from those set pictures, but someone did find a picture of what it's going to look like, and it looks... Dude, it looks like Marvel's Ultimate Alliance. Like it looks so good. So yeah, that's my number one. Look forward to release. It's coming out in 3 months, 2 months, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we'll be seeing it soon, and yeah. All right. Well, that was episode 1, guys. Thank you all for watching. Once again, if you feel so inclined, if you could please subscribe and hit the like button. It just helps our algorithm and getting more people to see this. Like and share. Do whatever you want to do with it. We don't want to make you feel pressured. We want y'all to just come, have fun, listen to two nerds talk about comic books and movies, and enjoy yourselves. That's really all this is.
Yep.
So yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in, and until next time, we'll see you later.